Thank you so much for this warm welcome. Well, I wouldn't have expected a Frenchman to be honored to attend your conference about transportation. Just a few words about myself. I'm leading a very technical company, but I've been very much in the digital side of it. I was head of sales for SNCF.com, which is the digital web and now mobile distribution channel of SNCF French Rail, which now has about 15 million downloads of the mobile application and a turnover which is roughly 4 billion euros. That's 40 billion kronen in kronen. Just a few things about the situation in France. And we're going to talk about smart ticketing. Smart ticketing, if that film goes on, is something that should be like this.
Go down and say your piece, bring back your company, and take from me all that you need. Blue sky, reach to me, hold your star in it, and comfort me in all that you know. Trees to stone, my stone is shaking, distance gone is slowly taken.
So that film was made about a year ago when we created Whizway Solutions, and it is now reality. Actually, this telephone does exactly what the customer here wanted to do, which is traveling from the Paris suburbs using the Paris metro and then using the TGV high-speed train and using one local transportation, which is Strasbourg in eastern France, easily just using the smartphone. And this is something that is very complicated in France because public transport is very fragmented. We have about 200 transport operators, different transport operators. Each of them is obviously the best one, has the best ticketing solution, and they are even so fragmented. If you see the place in the middle, it's northern France only. So you imagine that the different colors mean that you cannot travel even within one region of France easily because you have different systems which are not necessarily overlapping. So you have different tickets necessary, whatever the form of the ticket, and then you have something which is absolutely absurd, having 3 different readers side by side. This is in the station in southern France because you need to be able to read each of the different systems. There's also difficult access to information. I mentioned the mobile application of SNCF French Rail, which I was happy to lead. But this is only one of the numerous applications. And today, there are dozens, each of them providing some part of the information. There has been a trend in France towards open data, but this is only starting. So there is no one app that enables you to organize a trip from point A to point B anywhere in France. There's also this poor digital experience, in fact, brings the fact that out of 8 billion trips done in public transport each year in France, only about 1%, to make it simple, the TGV high-speed trains, are possible to have on QR codes or on other mobile ticketing solutions. That means 99% of transit is not possible today using your mobile phone. You have to have a different ticket. We also are in a very specific country maybe, but where our former president, he was mayor of Paris at the time, even jumps over the gates in the Paris metro. And fraud is a very important issue. The fraud rate goes from 7% when it's low to up to 25%. I've heard of cities where it's over 30%. So the number of money which is lost by public transport on that issue is very important in the 5 billion kronen range in France. And that is very important. And of course, there are technological challenges because there are different technologies for mobile phones. You have SMS, you have QR codes, you have NFC, you have Bluetooth, and in fact, nobody really agrees on which solution to use, so you have fragmented solutions. You also have the old-style card-centric solution where the ticket is on a card or on a ticket, whatever the type of it, or the tenets of account-based ticketing where you create an account and then use an ID, whatever its form, to travel. This is very complicated. And you also have opposite trains amongst the French public transport organization. On average, in France, a customer pays about 30% of the real price of its public transit ticket, but that can be as low as 10%. This figure shows Niort, which is a mid-sized city in France, 120,000 inhabitants, which is the largest city in France, which is offering free public transportation, which is obviously the best way for customers to travel when it's free. But that's not the main tendency. The main tendency, at least in France, is that public transport organizations fight strongly against fraud by building gates where they were not. So that probably is not in the sense of the best customer experience, but that's the way it is. So these are brand new TGV gates where you have to pass your NFC phone or your QR code in order to get through the platform. And you have multiple public transport organizations that are doing publicity commercials about we have to validate, you have to show that you are compliant with the regulation, that you have bought your ticket. A global door-to-door solution, smartphone, is expected by both the authorities. This is our new Prime Minister, Mr. Philippe, which, well, I'm going to translate it easily. What he's asking in the red rectangle is the possibility to travel door-to-door easily by combining different modes of transportation, generally using the smartphone. And on the bottom side of the slide is the president, CEO of French Rail, Guillaume Pépi, who intends, it was in late September, just a few weeks ago, he intends to offer a one platform, mobile platform, bringing the possibility to organize all types of transportations from point A to point B, and having the possibility to have a personal companion for all customers with personalized information and disruptions and how to get to your place when there are disruptions and where ticketing should not be an issue, but just one of the solutions. Of course, this is not to talk about customers, which are the most important. Customers do use smartphones mostly all the time. In France, about 3/4 of the children over 12 have, children or adults of course, have a smartphone. And the figures are done from a Deloitte study done in France last year. You can about double that figures when you're talking about youngsters beyond 25 years old. So that's 26 daily use, up to 50 when you're young, which in fact is very important because that brings a lot of contact possibilities. The previous presentation was about customer relation, and customer relation is having to be able to have a contact with your customer. You cannot have a contact with a ticket. 49% use it in public transport, so I like the photograph with the newspaper in the 1930s that was in New York Metro. We asked our customers, what do they expect? With no surprise, 3/4 expect to have mobile ticketing. The most surprising figure of all these is the last one for me. It's 40% of the customers saying they would use public transport more if they had a proper ticketing and mobile companion on their mobile phones. Because today, the mobile experience is that you have real-time itinerary, but you have multiple tickets. Actually, when I look into my pockets, I have about all these different types of tickets. Well, maybe I'm not the average Frenchman, but I have dozens of different ticket types, and without this, I simply cannot travel because there are the gates or other forms of validation. And the truth is that now 99% just queue at ticket vending machines. That picture was taken in Paris Gare du Nord station last week, just queuing in order to get their ticket. That's not the 21st century customer experience we expect. The problem is, today in transportation, in France and in most European countries, the reality is that we have gates, we have tickets, we have cards, and you're not going to replace that just over one day. And the idea behind Wizway solution is to make the mobile phones compatible with the existing validation systems and not the contrary, not adding a new one. Because today, the choice of NFC, which is near-field communication used by bank cards, used by transportation cards, is the one that brings the most solutions to customers. It is compatible with the readers. It enables mass transit validation that's under 250 milliseconds. That means a fluid customer experience. But there's one drawback, which is a slight red cross. It is not compatible yet with all these smartphones. So, yet because things are changing, NFC phones are now being sold about 1.5 billion times every year, and that figure is going to grow. That's worldwide figures. And you even have something really interesting, which is the latest iWatch Series 3, which includes an NFC chip inside of it. That means that without the smartphone, you can just use your smartwatch and open up the gate exactly like with a card, or you could also pay with Apple Pay or similar solutions. That brings new possibilities, and NFC is really getting as a standard in mobility. It opens up cars. Mercedes-Daimler is working on the project to open up and start their cars using the NFC technology because of its safety. Fidelity, I think that the figure from Juniper that shows that 3 billion Fidelity cards are going to be dematerialized in smartphones using the NFC technology over the next 3 years. Payment, of course, we all know that, and digital IDs that's growing up in several countries. And where are we at Wizway Solutions? We are some way unique because we are a startup. We are less than 20 people right now in my company. But we have been created and backed by Gemalto, the world leader in security, Orange, one of the key European mobile network operators, and the two main French transport operators, SNCF French Rail and RATP, which operates the Paris Metro. Why that joint venture? Simply because in the past, it was not possible to make arrangements between public transport operators and the telecom industry. The telecom industry wanted to get as much revenue as fast as possible, and the transport industry is looking for low cost because it is not a high margin activity. So it was simply not possible to get on, if each of the party waiting for the other one. But all of them knew it was necessary to do something for the customers. The mobile network operators, they want to have a mobile experience in what is used daily, which is public transport. And the public transport was looking a solution for its 99% of its customers that had no mobile ticketing solution. Of course, that had been done with the government support. There was the now French President Macron who supported our creation at that time. And our single goal is to develop customer use through a better, I would say, an utmost transport experience. And our goal is 1 million users by 2020. We are, in fact, a hub, because when you look at transportation in Europe, there are about 500, I think it's even more, different transport operators in Europe using several standards. And when you look at the other way around, the mobile industry is almost as complicated because you have several standards. So each of them cannot or hardly can speak to the other one, but it's a necessity. So we're just a gearbox in between, making a single point of contact. When we're talking with people like Apple or Samsung, European transportation is just an absolute mess for them. It's a huge potential, but it is dismantled about hundreds of different operators. And even large cities like Paris or London or Berlin are relatively small in their eyes because they're looking at worldwide projects in Asia, in India, or in North America. So one of our goals is to do that and remove all the technical and customer complexity that's behind it. The Asia I mentioned is really leading the way. When you're traveling in Tokyo and now in Beijing and in Hong Kong, they have developed solutions where you can use a mobile phone as your ticket using the technology. And that's really what we are intending to do by creating a 100% mobile customer experience with the schedules, of course, ticket purchase, payments, and the ticketing. You show there that we are not competitors to the Apple Pays and Samsung Pays and Android Pays. So we are not dealing with the banks which are struggling a lot with them and fighting. We are, in fact, a perfect combination to the payment solution. That's I would say, the average way of purchasing tickets in continental Europe. You have another way to do that, which is having a customer account, a payment system which is included in your account, and just traveling with our ID. What is important is to be compatible with both, because we see that this is something that is growing up. But you are not going to replace 100% of the customers which are traveling without an account with 100% of the customers which are going to travel with an account. So versatility is very important when you're looking at solutions. We have to be compatible, we have to be interoperable with both systems for future mobility as a service. For public transport and daily life, our smartphones do already open up gates in swimming pools in France, and to be interoperable in different countries. That's exactly what we're working on. Where are we in terms of implementation? Paris region announced October the 3rd, that's almost 1 month ago, the launch of the smartphone dematerialization of the Navigo Pass of Paris by mid-2018. That means that with no investment, in just a few months' time, they are able to offer us the seamless customer experience we've seen in the video. And what is interesting is that most of you have traveled to London, and traveling to London is very nice when you're a tourist and you're using your contactless bank card. But when you're a Londoner, in fact, you just travel with your smart card, with your plastic card. That means that 70% of the travelers still have no mobile service on their mobile phones. And the goal of the Paris region is 3 million yearly users by 2020. So to summarize, ticketing is expected by customers, we know that. NFC technology, which is not recent, it's 10 years old, is now becoming a standard on smartphone. It usually takes about that time for technology to get mature. The customer experience is incomparable. It even works if the smartphone is off or if its battery is down. I personally traveled with battery down for 15 days, and I still opened the metro gate in Paris. It is compatible, it has to be compatible with existing systems, because you're not going to replace them from one time to another, of course with the new ticketing solutions, and interoperable even when the ticketing systems are not. That's a very important point. Usually when you're talking about interoperability, you're thinking about connecting all the systems and making one card or one system valid for all different types of transportation, or several ones. That takes decades. And when you remember the first figure I gave you, 200 transport operators in France, it's simply not possible to put them all together. I know only about 2 different examples in Europe, which are the Netherlands and Denmark, which have managed with a very strong government impetus to do that. But in fact, in France, it's simply not possible. But the customer experience you saw in the film, in fact, you have 3 different tickets. You have the ticket of the Paris region, you have the TGV ticket, which is account-based, and you have the ticket of the Strasbourg region. We just did one thing, was putting them side by side in a secure element of the smartphone. And each reader recognizes its own ticket, then making the travel interoperable for the customer, even if the tickets are not interoperable at all. Transport, and of course the new shared mobilities, biking, car sharing also, and opening up to daily life, because we travel in a city for one specific reason, going to see friends or going to a library or bookshop or any place. We are already live. We started in Strasbourg on July the 27th, and easy to integrate because it's APIs that we integrate into mobile applications. That is to say, we are not replacing the existing world. We have an API that can be put into the system of the Paris Metro, that can be put into the system of the French Rail, of another transport organization, into Citymapper, into Google Maps, into whatever wants it, in order to enable smart ticketing. The very important thing is to use the mobile applications that the customers already do have in their pockets, already chosen by 3 main French, not yet European, transport organizations, and enabling door-to-door travel. So thank you very much for your attention, and maybe, I think we're quite late, so I will be open for answering your questions maybe during the pause in a few minutes. Thank you very much.